Good day, ladies and gentlemen, fellow students, and program director. There's actually a very unique story that I actually wanted to share with you before. We thought we were going to have a break, but I'm going to share it with everybody. 5 years ago, I actually met Mr. Peter Ndoro at the BBC. I was a lot skinnier than I am right now.
Oh my God.
And we got to take a picture and everything, and I told him that one day we'd be working a program together. Being the gentleman he was, he simply smiled at me and said, "Oh yeah," but I know in his mind he said, "Okay, another fan." But 5 years on, here we are on the same program, so I'm glad to hear that. So I'm going to assume that there's some people here who would like to be diplomats, so I'm going to address you as excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and comrades and friends. I believe a speech geared at the activation of skills of our youth ought to be substantiated by personal testimony. It is with this that I begin my presentation by giving you a short story of my own experience in the finding of my path in this life. I found myself, like many others, in my time of having left high school, in the midst of limited opportunity because of the impact of the recession in 2008. That year also happens to be the year that I was first out of school. My mother, who was single at the time, suffered a tremendous blow as the main source of her income was from real estate sales. As a result, I had to focus on unconventional means of obtaining some sort of growth and a career path. And it called for me to look beyond the conventional means of obtaining a tertiary education and then finding a comfortable job, which would then define my career within a single company or organization. This, of course, was not popular, as the pressure of being the firstborn child within a setting where there was basically no income in the family had started to take its toll on the way my family looked at doing things that didn't seem safe. However, I had the determination that I had a part to play within the continent's development spectrum, and so the road seemed worth the travel. I started off at age 16 within the ministry, church ministry that is, having taken on an apprenticeship at a local church while pursuing the route of community service and local development programs. Note that I did most of this with no salary, nor did I receive relevant referencing for a private sector job. I, however, used this as an avenue to get the reading of the pulse of our people. This experience would come in handy as I morphed from community service to youth advocate, primarily through an organization known as the Organization of African Youth, of which 7 years later, I am now the president of. Along this journey, I also encountered the education and training practices Seta, where I enrolled and passed the Learning Facilitator program, which I would use to facilitate courses in entrepreneurship within the Pretoria area when I was 20 years old. I used this knowledge to help create program concepts and operational models which would be used by organizations to promote entrepreneurship amongst young people at the time. After years of seeking unconventional knowledge and career pursuit, I stand here before you today at 25 years old as the Deputy Presiding Officer of the African Union's Economic, Social, and Cultural Council. I am the youngest to ever hold this position, and the second youngest happens to be 45 years old. Thank you. This shows that in our country, while the normal roads may seem congested and near impossible to break through, there is still potential for those who seek to innovate, to create a new road for fellow South Africans to travel in order to attain full realization of their potentials. If I was to describe the current situation of our country's economy in a metaphor, I would describe it as a cake, which was meant to be shared by 10 people, but now needing to feed 100. While the cake seems to be satisfying in the hands of 10, the reality is that it will not be enough to satisfy everyone who needs to be fed. In our country today, as in other African countries, all around our beloved continent, the economic model which was passed on to democratic dispensations, was never meant to accommodate everyone above a position of poverty. We see this even with the reaction of the economic growth of our country, whereas while it is growing, it is simply not enough. Which is why a common trend amongst the African countries that are actually seeing good growth is the opening up of the market to enhance free market trade. This doesn't necessarily mean that it becomes the Wild West without any laws, but rather an environment where local business are promoted to grow through the necessary investments, incentives, so as to ensure that there is commitment by entrepreneurs, both big and small. Another benchmark of these countries, which are experiencing booming economies, is the investment in young talent beyond the normal means of empowerment. This is done by actually encouraging creativity, both in the consumer and service sectors, so as to ensure that the creation of local products and services which will result in a better way of living at reduced pricing due to the fact that most of what is needed to enrich the country is already within the country. It is with this that I believe that my main message today should be to remind all of you, from the learners about to be embarked on this journey into the world, to the entrepreneurs, the civil servants, that all we need to make South Africa even greater is right here in South Africa. We are at an opportune time where the innovator is most needed, more than any other time prior to this one. I therefore call upon us to present our approach to development with the intention to create and to ensure that whatever we do is done with the spirit of adding value. If you're an entrepreneur, let your product and service read the pulse of the market and ensure that you will be creating a better life for those who you seek to serve. Businesses built on this model have a much greater chance of surviving the forever changing climate of the economy as compared to those who simply copy and paste what they've seen others do. We need more avenues to create jobs and contracts for our people. Remember, we need more cakes. Entrepreneurs are at the heart of this factory, and therefore it is important that we encourage that. Employment in our day goes beyond simply just having security. It is a partnership between the organization and us as the employees in order to ensure that our organizations survive and are profitable. Therefore, it is essential that when we pursue a career in the employment sector, we enter the company from day one in the interview with a view of being a partner who is investing our skills in order to reap a share in the profits of the company through our salary. This outlook within the right environment of employment can reap great benefit both to the employer and the employee. It is thus necessary that we enrich ourselves with skills through the various forms of education which are available to us with the intention to apply it for positive evolution of the sectors we choose to go into. Ladies and gentlemen, our generation is burdened yet blessed with the responsibility of defining what economic freedom looks like. I have taken the liberty to assume that all of us in this room are leaders, and therefore you will be part of the influence wherever you will be. It is therefore important that we consider the fact that as history is being written, our personal roads are defining how our children will see South Africa. Moreover, it is inevitable that whatever culture we promote in this time will be second nature to our children. Let us also remember the important role that we play in the African continent. Let us learn from our fellow brothers with the understanding that we also ought to lead by example. Therefore, let us apply our insights from the African reality with the realization of our context as a nation, that we can contribute meaningfully to the collective of the development of our mother continent. It is important that we decide now what our South Africa will look like in the next 30, 40, 50 years. And be aware that the road to discovering this ideal will not be easy. However, it is worth it. I leave you with the words of one of the fathers of our nation, former President Thabo Mbeki, who once said, "Whoever we may be, whatever our immediate interest, however much we carry baggage from our past, however much we have been caught by the fashion of cynicism and loss of faith in the capacity of our people, let us err today and say, nothing can stop us now." Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Patson.